Today I wanted to talk to you about motivation. We are actually in a very unique time of year right now. If you've ever made any kind of a New Year's resolution, you know that now is about the time that those resolutions fall by the wayside. This is also the point where swimsuit season is upon us and summer is coming. We just find ourselves in this transitional time where whatever your resolutions were, you may be falling off. And then summer is coming, so then you might also be wanting to gear up for that swimsuit. When you think of motivation, that is just a very interesting place to be in. It really uncovers for us the fact that having big motivation all the time is very difficult to do. That framework, what I just shared, is really pointing towards people who are trying to get success. But I can tell you from working with tons of people that wane in motivation can happen whether you are successful or not. I've had clients that are doing amazing, absolutely amazing. They're losing weight, they're on their way to their ideal body, and then suddenly they just start to slow down. No matter where you are in your journey, whether you're just starting out, whether you've made a resolution, or maybe you've had some success, or even, and this is a big one that we don't talk about a lot on videos like this, but when you actually hit your goal, that's another time where motivation might suddenly start to wane because it's like, well, I did it. Now what? Wherever you are in your journey, motivation is a useful and important thing to look at. As far as my answer to this question, what do I do if my motivation starts to wane? I want to paint a picture for you, a vision, you in your ideal body. Or, you know what, if that's a little bit too difficult to envision, because I have had people who say they can't really envision that. Let's just imagine somebody who is in an ideal body, like an actor or an athlete, somebody that you admire and you think, man, if I was in their body, life would be perfect, I'd have it made. We want to think about, in that ideal body, how does that person live? How does that person stay in that ideal body? I can tell you, as a person who's achieved her ideal body, they don't stay in that body by hardcore doing all of the things all the time. Not constantly pushing themselves out of their comfort zones. Quite the contrary, they have found routines and habits that they can depend on. Additionally, and this is the key, is their perspective. Their perspective on how they're eating, how they're moving or not moving. It all comes down to this one key concept. You are always on the path. So there's never a point where you're off the path. And it can be very confusing in our culture because we talk about, oh, I fell off the wagon. You never fell off the wagon. And I know why we say that, right? It's like, oh, I'm doing all the things to get me into my body and now I'm not, so I've fallen off the wagon. I want to offer you a different perspective. So rather than being on or off, what if we look at our journey as we're either moving forward or we're moving backwards or slowing down? We are always on the path. And so when you begin to look at it that way, it becomes much more of a continuum. That opens up some interesting possibilities for when you are in those moments where your motivation is waning. Because remember, it's not a question of I'm either doing this or I'm not. It's a question of what am I doing? That's simply it. What am I doing right now? With that in mind, what I want to offer you is, if you find yourself in that position where your motivation is waning, reframe. My motivation might be waning, but I'm still on the path. Like, I am on the path, for better or worse. And I'm either moving towards my goal or away from my goal. What can I do to move towards my goal? Even if I'm not doing all the things that I want to do, what can I do? Well, some examples of that might be, you're eating cake every single night after your meal. You know, that's probably not helping you get to your ideal body, but you're doing it anyways, and it's tough to just not do it. What can you do to continue moving towards your goals? Now, the snarky answer is stop eating the cake. Well, sure. Or let's say you just don't want to stop eating the cake, but you are always on the path. There's no stepping off the path. Your body doesn't know that you've stepped off the path. So it's either moving towards the goal or moving away from the goal, but it's always on the path. So what can you do, knowing that you're always on the path, What can you do in that moment? Well, I've got an idea. Maybe cut the piece of cake in half. You just start cutting it in half. Or maybe you give yourself the gift of a different dessert. Maybe you're just in this kind of cycle and the cake is just becoming this thing that you're depending on, but maybe if you change it up and have a pie one night, maybe that just breaks you out of the cycle. Maybe you're eating it out of the container rather than serving yourself. Just little things. What little thing can you do? Because no matter what, you're still on the path. There's no off the path. So even if you're not watching what you eat, you're not buying healthy food, maybe you're eating out for every single meal, your body doesn't know that you're off the path. So it's still processing food exactly how it always does. The question is, what can you do to tweak what you're doing on the path?